Thanks to the House settlement, there's a new portal window open. But does it even really matter?
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, folks? Happy Friday, and welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, a daily national college hoop show, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your co-hosts for today. I'm Andy Patton. He is Isaac Schade. You're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day here in July as Summer League gets underway. Some fun stuff going on around the basketball space. Want to thank all of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day, and remind you that you can check out this show ad-free on Amazon Music. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com, and you'll get 50% off your first year. Well, Isaac, there's a new transfer portal window open until August 5th. We're going to talk about that. It is for designated student athletes, and we're going to talk about what that means, what we might expect out of this transfer portal window over the next couple of weeks. Grand Canyon is joining the Mountain West a year early, and Boise State, they are not happy about it. We'll talk about the drama going on out west, and then we're quizzing Isaac today in this week's edition of Friday Facts to close out the week, get you on and out into your weekend. Lots of fun stuff today, Isaac. Let's start, however, with this new transfer portal window. It began on July 7th, so a couple days ago as we're recording this here on Thursday, July 10th, and it goes up until August 5th. There is a 30-day window where designated student athletes are allowed to enter the transfer portal. I'm going to quickly explain what a designated student athlete is as quickly as I can explain it. Isaac, you can fill in any kind
That's why I'm laughing. Yes.
Yeah, any kind of gaps on this explanation. And we can kind of talk about what this might mean. So the House settlement comes out. We've been talking a lot about the House settlement here on the show, of course. One of the big stipulations in the House settlement, obviously most of the conversation has been about schools being able to directly pay student athletes and what that means for programs that are more football focused and what that means for programs that maybe don't have $20 million to spend every year. But one of the big things that came out of the House settlement is roster limits. And this matters more in bigger sports like football and basketball, football and baseball, but in basketball, because most rosters were already around 15, the 15-player limit is not making a huge impact necessarily. But part of the reason the House settlement was delayed in the first place was that they didn't want to suddenly impose a hard and fast roster limitation that would cause hundreds of student athletes across the country, again, primarily in sports like football, to just be immediately cut from their team, lose their opportunity to compete at that level, have to find a new school, or give up their playing careers. Like, it was going to be really, really messy. And so with this rule, they're effectively grandfathering in any players who were going to be on the roster and who now don't have a spot because of the roster limitations. That is what is considered a designated student athlete. And a school has to term a player a designated student athlete, or a DSA for short. And a DSA would be if these three things are true. If that player would have been removed from the 25-26 roster. So if you had a player on your team that wouldn't have made the roster if you had that 15-person limit, they were an eligible member of the team last year, so it can't be incoming freshmen, it can't be transfers, anything like that, and they were assured a spot on next year's team. So if you're listening to this show and you're thinking about your roster, if there's a player who's a walk-on on your team last year who didn't play or played very little, they probably would be classified as a designated student athlete if your team is going to go over 15 players. Isaac, that's the general gist of what a DSA is. And then the transfer portal window is effectively so that if a student athlete finds out, oh, my coach told me I'm a DSA, they told me that, basically they said if we had to cut down to 15, you wouldn't still be on the roster. I'm going to transfer and go find somewhere else to play so that next year, when this limit becomes a hard and fast rule, I'm not left out in the dust. That's basically what this rule is implying and why this transfer portal window exists.
Yeah, exactly. And to put a fine point on the they, the they is Judge Claudia Wilkin, who, as you said, Andy, like, this was the big holdup. I think the House settlement would have been finalized and ratified, whatever you want to call it, weeks, maybe even a couple months earlier. But I think Judge Wilkin very wisely was like, hey, look, this is messing and screwing over quite a few student athletes because we were seeing, maybe not necessarily in our sport, in college basketball, because it is one of the two highest revenue sports in collegiate athletics, but a lot of the non-rev sports, those schools were starting to, in anticipation of what was going to happen, were cutting student athletes, or, like maybe it wasn't to the level of like COVID where schools were cutting entire programs. I don't think I've heard of that at all, but it was a lot of non-rev student athletes who were starting to get cut. And I think she wisely was seeing that and wanted to do this to protect them. And so that's great news. Ultimately, Andy, I think the big takeaway for me is what you said in the cold open. I think when people hear new transfer portal window open, just because of what we're used to in the transfer portal window, we expect this flurry of activity, and there's just simply not going to be that. Why? Because, as Andy so well described, a lot of these DSAs, these designated student athletes, aren't going to be the ones who are making a massive impact. They are, I'll call them HSCs, Andy, house settlement casualties. And so that's what we're looking at, is guys that are, and I say guys specific to men's college basketball, because that's what our show is, that would have basically been casualties in this whole thing. And so, like, Andy, we've seen a few names, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But when I say a few names, I truly mean only a few names in this thing. I got to be honest, I can't really imagine a world between now and August 5th, when this runs out, that we will see any quote unquote big names, whatever you want to mean by that. And so it's like, if anybody out there is feeling like, oh man, do I need to be unsettled about our roster either going or coming? I really don't think you do, Andy, for the vast majority of schools. What you've got now is what you've got. It's not like where a coach moves after the portal window closes and we get a bunch of movement from that one school. I think anybody that was gonna move, that's a bigger name, that would have been affected by this, already has and is already either in the portal or has found a new landing spot. So I think this is noteworthy, but ultimately probably isn't the bomb that a lot of people thought it was.
Yeah, and I think you described it perfectly. I think for me, like the portal window that was open initially in late March, early April, these players all had the opportunity to enter the portal at that time. And presumably if they, if they are walk-on type players and they wanted to go somewhere else where they could play more minutes, they would have done so at that time. The fact that they didn't do that likely means they're content where they are, either because they love the school, because they, for whatever they want to play, they want to just be there academically. They have friends there, family there. They want to just be, I know, for like speaking on putting my Gonzaga hat on, like a lot of players who walk on at Gonzaga do so because they want to learn from Mark Few, or they want to work with the coaching staff. Many of Gonzaga's walk-ons have gone on to become coaches and move into that space. So like, if that's why you're there, this isn't going to change your mind. Like this isn't going to be a big deal. So, and then if you're somebody listening to this, you're thinking, okay, it's probably not going to affect my roster, but maybe my team's roster, but maybe we can go get somebody. Yeah, there's not going to be a lot of names out there. Like players who leave big programs like blue blood programs or power conference programs may end up being players that get sought after at smaller, at mid-major programs. But if you're a player who's a designated student athlete at a mid-major school, you're probably not entering the transfer portal at this point, because you're probably not going to get picked up by another D1 program, because if you were good enough to play, if you weren't good enough to play big minutes at the D1 school you were at, you're probably not going to get picked up somewhere else. So I wouldn't, again, expect a ton of movement, but I think this is a good thing just to basically give them the option. I think it makes sense to have the option, because in reality, what Judge Wilkin kind of noted and figured out was there are going to be student athletes who find out that they may not have a secure footing at their current school for next year, and not giving them any opportunity to do anything about that feels unjust. So now here is your justification. You've now had 2 30-day transfer portal windows. If you choose not to enter at any time and next year your team kind of has a limitation and can't keep you, it doesn't feel like that was unjust at that point. So I think this makes a ton of sense. And Isaac, as we alluded to, not a ton of names. The biggest name by far, one of the only names, is Noah Shelby. Noah Shelby was at Kansas. He redshirted last year for the Jayhawks. He does have 2 years of college basketball experience. He began his career at Vanderbilt, played 9 minutes per game as a freshman back in 22-23, averaged a little under 4 points, shot 31% from three, transferred to Rice, played similar, 12 minutes per game at Rice, averaged about 4 points, 33% from three in 12 minutes per game. So again, that's a player who could make an impact somewhere. I mean, he averaged 4 points per game in the AAC. Is that elite? No, but does that mean, it's a player, and now he's got a year of experience being a walk-on at Kansas. So he's going to get sought after. He's going to get pursued. Somebody's going to pick him up. But again, if he ends up being the best player out of this transfer portal window, which I think is incredibly likely, I think that's kind of proof that it's not a super impactful period of time for college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to Noah and his game, I think you're absolutely correct with that. Literally, Andy, the only other name that we have been able to find thus far, as we record this, by the way, on Thursday, July 10th, it is 4:44 Eastern Standard Time, the year of our Lord 2025, is Ja Quinones from Mercer, who had 5.1 points, 1.7 assists last year. In his 3 years at Mercer, 20 minutes a game average. I wonder if he is related to, what was his name at Lester Quinones? I
was going to look it up, but I'm not sure.
The shorty shorts guy, right? Is that, am I thinking? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm really curious about that, but going to be really interesting to see. All right, Andy, let's move from house settlement to conference realignment news, where Grand Canyon is joining the Mountain West. We already knew that. They're joining the Mountain West now, Andy Patton. And I got to tell you, Boise State is nonplussed, and I got to imagine a whole bunch of other Mountain West schools aren't either. We'll unpack that in just a second. Right after I tell you about Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility of and control over all your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place. Literally, anytime I say that, it makes me feel like I'm sitting at mission control and I'm just going beep, beep, boop, boop with all my finances all around the place. So in addition to managing your money with Monarch, you're also building wealth. How cool is that? Something I found that I really love about Monarch is having everything financial all right there in one app. So instead of having to remember to use a whole bunch of different financial apps or creating a folder full of them on my phone, you just go straight to Monarch and it's all right there. That makes managing the day-to-day of finances so much easier and so much less stressful. So join us. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Andy looked it up during the break. No relation between the Quinones brothers, between Ja Quinones and Lester. It's kind of a Jacob Johnny Furphy situation that we got on our hands. All right, Andy. Grand Canyon University was set to join the Mountain West Conference basically this time next year as the fiscal year turned into the 26-27 year. That would make sense. Why? Because there was a whole bunch of Mountain West schools that were going to be off to reignite the Pac-12 next year. But Andy, the Mountain West has moved this up, and Grand Canyon is now is immediately joining the Mountain West. Seems like a weird move. There's a lot to go with that. But Andy, as you would expect with this move, there's some non-pleased other schools in the Mountain West, even if some of them are maybe leaving this conference. Andy, what I know you're a West Coast guy out there. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you thinking about this?
Yeah, it feels like a pretty intentional move by the Mountain West. I mean, frankly, if we're going to be candid, it feels like a middle finger by the Mountain West.
I was going to ask, is this a middle finger extension?
I think it's pretty clear that this is a parting shot to the five schools that are leaving the Mountain West. Of course, that would be Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, Utah State, and Fresno State. Those five schools on July 1st, 2026 will officially be members of the Pac-12 alongside Oregon State, Washington State, Gonzaga, and now Texas State. And so the Mountain West has been busy kind of replenishing from some other conferences in order to mitigate the losses of those 5 schools. And that's, of course, no surprise. Every conference has kind of had to do that. You've seen this sort of movement all the way down as the Mountain West has had to replace schools. The Pac-12 had to replace schools. The Mountain West had to replace schools. The Big West had to replace schools. The WCC had to replace schools. Like, everybody's kind of been reacting to this. But for the most part, all of those moves have been done with the intention of them starting in the 26-27 season, which, of course, as you said, makes sense. Grand Canyon and UTEP and Hawaii and UC Davis all replacing the 5 Mountain West schools kind of made logical sense. But the Mountain West said, no, we would like Grand Canyon to be here right now. And I think part of that probably stems from the fact that the WAC straight up disappeared with all the movement that happened. The WAC has now merged with the ASUN to form the United Alliance Conference. And I think that was kind of the justification that the Mountain West may give for why this is happening. But this has a massive impact on these programs because it's happening so soon. I mean, I know this is not a fall sports podcast, but the volleyball schedule for the Mountain West was already released, and now they have to redo the entire schedule.
Absurd.
I would be, if I was a coach, if I was an athletic trainer, if I was somebody who worked and found out that all the scheduling that I had been planning on, I was expecting to be, in Hawaii this weekend, I was expecting to be in San Jose this weekend, and now all of that might potentially be uprooted and your whole schedule is changed. I mean, I'd be furious. And I think completely justifiably so. This impacts real people and their real life significantly. And for basketball, the schedule hadn't come out yet, but for the Mountain West, they finally had a balanced schedule. There was 11 teams before Grand Canyon joined. So those 11 teams were all going to play each other twice, 10 games twice, 20 game perfectly balanced schedule. Now they're going to have to change that. And they can't just add 2 games to the conference slate. A 22 game conference schedule is ridiculous. And B, other teams, they've already started setting their non-conference. Like, you can't change that at this point. So they're going to have to figure out how to make this 20-game unbalanced schedule, adding Grand Canyon into the mix. Like, it's just a messy situation for the remaining schools in the Mountain West, who, again, should be pretty unhappy about this. I mean, Boise State released a statement, and I'm not going to read the entire thing, but they are furious. I have read a lot of very pre-planned, very carefully worded press releases from university officials. I have read hundreds of these in my life, and they usually do not convey a lot of emotion. This one does. They're mad. Boise State is mad, and San Diego State and Fresno, they're all mad. I'm sure that they are. This just happens to be the statement that was read. I mean, at the end of it, they say, we will address this matter and the harm to the departing universities in litigation. Like, they're bringing out the lawyers. Like, this is, they want to send a statement here because they feel, I think justifiably, like the Mountain West was kind of, kicking them out the door a little bit and saying, well, you're not in the conference anymore. And part of Boise State's statement was, they said, the Mountain West and its commissioner made to the departing universities, despite being members of the Mountain West through June 30th, the universities were not consulted or permitted to vote on the early invitation to GCU. That is what is interesting to me, Isaac, because I think there's a reasonable argument that the Mountain West departing schools shouldn't have a vote on, like, new members specifically, like coming into the conference. Like, I don't think Boise State should have gotten a vote on whether Grand Canyon joined the league in the future or not, but they should have probably gotten a vote about them joining a year where they're going to be there. Like, that feels like a very reasonable thing. And the fact that the Mountain West did not grant them that and just accepted this team a year early when it's going to directly impact them without consulting them, I don't see how you can read that any other way than a direct shot at those programs.
And what's interesting, specific to, I'm trying to read between the lines of the Boise State statement. It's unclear to me, Andy, whether their statement means that the departing schools were not allowed to vote on the early invitation, or whether all Mountain West schools were not permitted to vote on the early invitation. Because if it's no school, like if it was just a unilateral decision by the conference office, that's one thing, right? If nobody was able to have a say in it, but if they allowed the members that are sticking around to vote, but not the leaving members, that feels worse to me. Like that, that's just
That would surprise me. I like, because even if I was like Wyoming or San Jose State or UNLV, like I probably would have voted no on this as well because of the timing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they all said, yeah, screw it. Let's just, let's send our parting shot to the 5 members, to the 5 leaving schools. But something tells me that this was just a unilateral decision by the conference office, which still doesn't feel great, but I'm with you. It's maybe not as bad as it would be if they went behind those schools' backs and said, hey, Wyoming, San Jose State, let's make this move here and not consult the other schools, even though they're still going to be in the league for the next year.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a great thing for Bryce Drew and the Lopes to get into the Mountain West before all the other schools take off. We'll see what they can do without Tyon Grant Foster this year. And Andy, it'll be really interesting to see. And then going forward, obviously 26-27, Mountain West isn't going to be what it's been the last several years. But it'll be interesting to see what happens 26-27 and beyond.
Yeah, I think just we won't get all the way into it right now. I think we'll take a closer look at what this conference will look like in a future show. But Grand Canyon is kind of the only addition that the Mountain West has made that really impacts basketball in a strong way. Their other additions are Hawaii, who's had fleeting success in men's basketball, UTEP, who has also had fleeting success, UC Davis, who has not had fleeting success in basketball. They have rarely been good. So those 3 programs aren't adding much to the men's basketball side of things, but Grand Canyon obviously does, which makes sense since they do not have football. You got to add value somewhere, and that value is coming primarily from men's basketball and to a lesser extent baseball. But with UNLV, Nevada, New Mexico, this is still a conference that has some talent and some programs that are potentially going to make it a 2, maybe 3 bid league, but I think it's more likely to be a 2 or a 1 bid league, and I think Grand Canyon's going to be a player in that mix. But it's a conference that's not nearly going to be at the level it's been prior to the rebuilt Pac-12 stealing so much of their talent.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, Isaac, it's my turn. My turn to quiz you for our weekly Friday facts. We got some fun stuff we're going to talk about, some fun quiz questions to hit you with to close out the show and the week. All that coming up here in just a second. All right, Isaac, Friday facts coming at you here to close out the week here on Locked On College Basketball for those who are new to this. So we've been doing this for about a month now or so, where one of us will quiz the other, some question related to college hoops, obviously, and kind of just have a fun banter conversation about it, especially here in the off season where there's not as much news to get to. It's kind of fun to have some of these conversations. So, Isaac, I have pulled a list.
Okay.
And I am using Bart Torvik's 2026 T-Rank projections. So you know the source of where this information is coming from, because Ken Palm's data is still kind of 2025 based. So we're trying to look ahead, some projections for next season. There are 9 teams in college basketball that right now at Torvik's T-Rank are top 20 in both offensive and defensive adjusted efficiency, right? Top 20 in both categories for Torvik projected in 2026. Who are those 9 teams? I've also written down 7 teams that were very, very close to being top 20 in both offense and defense. So I'm curious to see how many of these 9 you can get and which of these just missed teams you will end up guessing. Hit me with your first guesses.
Okay, let me make sure I've got it. There are 9 teams at Torvik that are preseason top 20 in both offensive and defensive efficiency.
Correct.
And then there's a further list of 7 you have that almost did it.
Yeah, the 7 are all top 25 in both, except one that's 26th. So
okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had those parameters. Okay, I'm going to start with Houston.
Houston is, yes, they are on there. They're 15th in offense and 1st in defense.
Okay. Duke.
Duke is the second team listed. So yes, you're doing them so far in order. Very good.
Well, I'm just a boss like that. UConn.
UConn is one of the just missed. UConn was 7th in offense and 23rd in defense. By the way, Duke was 5th and 2nd. So the best of any of these teams, by the way, was Duke.
Okay. Reigning national champion, the Florida Gators.
Florida Gators are on this list. 13th in adjusted offensive efficiency, 6th in defensive efficiency.
Purdue? I don't know if their defense is good enough.
Purdue is first in adjusted offensive efficiency, 26th in defense. So they just missed the cut defensively. Good call on that, by the way.
Purdue, Houston, Duke, Florida, UConn.
3 of the remaining teams.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Guess first.
BYU?
BYU just missed as well.
Dang.
Second in offense, 21st in defense. I literally mean they just missed. 3 of the teams you have left are in the Big Ten. And then there's 3 other teams, and they're all in different conferences.
3 of the 6 that are left are in the Big Ten. Okay. I disagree, but Michigan.
Michigan is 6th in adjusted offense and 8th in adjusted defense, a lot higher than I would have thought. And I thought Michigan might be a challenge for you because I knew you weren't as high on them.
Okay, more Big Ten. Oh, well, this is not Big Ten, but St. John's?
St. John's is on here, yes. Second in offense. Actually, they're 20th in defense. So just snuck in there.
Okay. So that's 5. 3 more Big Ten schools.
2 more Big Ten schools.
2 more Big Ten schools.
Yep.
Oh, let me first. This is another non-Big Ten. I don't think they're as high this year, but I'll say Alabama.
Alabama is. They surprised me that they snuck on here. They're 18th in offense, 19th in defense, so just barely, but they did sneak on here. Yep.
Okay, so that's 6. I need 3 more, and 2 more. 2 of them are Big Ten school. Oh, UCLA.
UCLA is 8th in offense, 14th in defense. Yes.
So 1 more Big Ten school. Oh, Oregon?
No. This was probably the one that's the most surprising to me. It's not like a stunner. It's not Rutgers, but it's like a team that I probably wouldn't have guessed. And then your last school, by the way, is Big 12. Just so you Big 10 and Big 12.
I need a Big 10 and a Big 12. Big 12. Okay, we've got Houston. BYU is in that just outside group. I don't think Kansas is. I'm not saying them. Arizona's offense should be the question. Is their defense for me? I'll say Arizona.
Arizona, yes. 14th and 13th. They like their defense a lot over there.
Interesting. And then so 1 more Big Ten school, and then there were 4 more of that 7 outside group. No, that means Kentucky's not on this list. Wow, interesting. Is Kentucky in the just outside group?
Kentucky is in the just outside group, 25th in offense, which surprises me. That feels very low.
I would have thought they would have been higher.
9th in defense, but they do not like the offense right now.
Big 10. 1 more Big 10. Okay. I don't think Michigan State's good enough. Probably offensively. Their defense probably fits. And you said it was a surprising. We've already said Purdue, Indiana, Illinois.
It is Illinois. Yes. Coach Underwood's Eastern European club is 9th in offense and 11th in defense, which is, almost top 10 in both. Kind of surprising. Wow. I like Illinois this year, and I think maybe they're a team that I might have as kind of an under the radar, like, hey, this team might be going to the Final Four type team. But maybe they're not that under the radar if Torvik's got them this high. So they're going to be a fun one.
Man, what up, Sonny, our Locked On Illinois host? So, Andy, there are then 3 schools in your just outside this top 20. Who are the other 3?
Louisville, which was 4th in offense, but 27th in defense, which feels about right with that roster. Arkansas, 21st in offense, 12th in defense. Okay. And then the Tar Heels, North Carolina, 22nd in offense and 15th in defense. So I was a little surprised. That's a lot of faith in North Carolina's defense, which I'm sure you would know more than me, but I'm not sure. They've still got a pretty small backcourt. I'm not exactly sure where the defense is. I think their defense will be fine, but 15 feels like a lot of faith in that group.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years. Well, yeah, agreed. That's a conversation we can have more fully another time.
It's a fun group. I think, you're looking at more or less what a lot of people would have is around the top 10 teams. I think, most people have BYU obviously and Purdue in their top 10, and Louisville I think is a top 10 team as well. But this is a unique group of teams that I think we're going to see make a lot of impact this year. I'm excited to see how it shakes out. Torvik stuff's always very good, so I have little doubt that even the teams that I think maybe they're not as good as Torvik has them, if I was a gambling man, I'd bet on Torvik more than I'd bet on my thoughts.
Yeah, and it's now that I've finished the exercise, Andy, I've pulled up Torvik's projections and I'm looking at it just to see. Interesting. Tennessee and Kansas both would have fit defensively, but not there. Tennessee 40th and 3rd. Kansas 44th and 5th. So that's interesting that they both miss because of offense, while Ohio State is 3rd in offensive efficiency, 45th. Indeed, that's interesting.
I was planning to write Ohio State and I actually forgot to, because that one really stands out to me. So does Iowa State, 54th in offense, but 4th in defense. I mean, that's not a shocker for Iowa State, but that's really low for their offense.
Yeah, I mean, that means there are 4 schools we're looking at here, Andy, that are top 10 in defensive efficiency, but 40 or worse in offense. That being Tennessee, Kansas, Iowa State, and Michigan State. That's really intriguing to me.
Yeah, some fun teams on this list. I was a little surprised, like no Auburn, they're not top 20 in either category. That stood out to me. Texas Tech is not top 20 in either category. Like there's some teams that I think will end up being better. Like I think Texas Tech's going to be better. Torvik has them 28th. I that's too low. I think we saw Christian Anderson absolutely ball out. I think JT Toppin's going to be great. I'm a huge fan of their 2 transfer additions from the WCC and Tyree Bryan and Lawan Watts. Like I'm high on Texas Tech, and I think they're a little too low here.
What's funny is Leaf and I literally had that same conversation a little bit on yesterday's show. And so obviously he would be aligned with your take there. Andy, as I'm scanning here, I found one other school that is top 25 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, but they are outside the top 20 in both, interestingly enough. And that's USC. They're 24th in both offensive and defensive efficiency.
Interesting. I'm intrigued by USC as well. So that'll be Rodney Rice is a good addition. I think Elijah Arenas is going to be great. That's going to be a fun team to see how it goes for Coach Muss in year 2.
How about that, Andy? Well, fun one. That's another great Friday Facts gang. We hope you were playing along with us there. I guess that means actually next week, Andy, we will not have Friday Facts because we have a fun guest interview on Friday. I don't think I want to spoil it yet.
No,
it's not in the can. And but I'll just tell you that it's going to be somebody awesome that if you love college basketball, you're going to want to be around for. So that'll be great. Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody. Really appreciate you being here with us. If you've not subscribed to the show on video and audio, do it now so you don't miss a second of Locked On College Basketball. All the great content coming at you all summer long as we get ready for another great season. If you haven't joined the Locked On College Basketball Discord, which is another way for all the sickos to join us and go even more in depth and talk all the time, we'd love to see you there. That link's in the show notes and it's absolutely free to join. As always, apologies to the Lawyer family. Shouts to McBruins. Cheers to, I got that out of order. Shouts to the McBruins. Cheers to the Wild Popes. And until Monday, peace.